and welcome to the Kink Perspective. My name's Chris. I'm a psychotherapist and consultant. This is a little bit different. I'm going to be putting out 2 episodes this week. This episode today that I'm going to cover is kind of based on a writing I did, and I felt there's some real big importance in what I wrote. I was talking about safety and electro-play, kind of exploring the currents, if you will, of BDSM. And I really think it's something valuable because there's some psychological insights that I've lended to my writing. And I know not everybody's on different social media platforms like FetLife or Fetish.com, where I tend to write quite a bit. And I really wanted to bring this kind of into the forefront because this is an elevated play inside of the lifestyle. There's a lot of elements. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. There's been a lot of things popping up lately of why people, for example, should stray away from breath play. I haven't really gotten into that one yet because there's been some really excellent writings on it and discussions on the dangers of that. So I kind of, in a realm of some things that I've done in my time or I've watched done inside of the lifestyle, none more so than electric play for me kind of comes to mind. And I really wanted, when I wrote about this, I think it was last week sometime I don't even really recall when I did it, that there was a lot of information here that really needed to be said and talked about it, because it is something else inside of the lifestyle that we tend to do or play and experiment with, and that we don't really think about what we're doing or understanding, because sometimes we'll just pick up a toy and that's great, or how can I use this? So I really wanted to kind of cover that today. So I'm going to kind of read what I wrote. I know it's going to stray, but I'm going to add in a little bit more context as we go. So for those of us who venture into this unique area of BDSM, electroplay weaves together a really thrilling blend of pleasure and pain, and it creates this electrifying mosaic of sensations that we feel throughout our body or emotionally or even psychologically. Now, one thing we can't overlook or definitely overstate, one principle that stands unwavering, is safety is not negotiable inside of the lifestyle. It's not just a choice, it's a necessity for us. Now, when I was in the military, I was an electronics technician. I dealt with satellites and communications for our surface fleet. My chief once told me, always treat electricity with respect. It has the power to save lives or conversely, cause devastating harm. And a small mistake with electricity can have dire consequences. Now, this advice continues to resonate with me as I explore this world with electroplay and all of the, plus 2 decades that I've been inside of the lifestyle, where this intricate dance, if you will, with electricity demands the utmost care and caution. And I want to dive into the allure of electrical stimulation and its profound connection with those who embrace the lifestyle. Now, safety always should take center stage as we discuss these things, and I want to kind of cover these common risks and the potential dangers that lurk inside of electroplay, and really help us understand this is more about empowerment for those of us who enjoy this aspect, or maybe a refresher for some of those who have been playing with electroplay, or understanding for those who are beginners going into this world, that emphasizes the importance of informed consent and preparedness and meticulous attention to well-being. Understanding the worlds of volts and amps and watts, and offering clarity on these really essential electrical concepts I'm going to cover, and their significance in the BDSM sphere. And I want to point towards the critical safety precautions here that should never be underestimated, and highlight the psychological effects of electrical injuries to ensure that we can be responsible and consensual during our forms of play, especially when they involve electricity. Now, part of my primary focus here is safety and awareness of the risks of electroplay. And I'm going to leave a question because I've already asked it online, but I'll leave one on my Spotify. Is I want you to, I'll encourage you to share some of your experiences, and, maybe, or reach back out to me after you've heard the episode, and on social media, and let me know your thoughts and your insights or stuff you've done. So first, exploring electroplay and understanding this pleasure, what actually is it? Now, electroplay, known as e-stim or electrical stimulation play, is a distinct facet of our lifestyle that involves the controlled application of electrical currents to stimulate physical sensations and intensify pleasure. This practice is not for the faint of heart, and it revolves around precision and unwavering commitment to safety. Now, when we talk about these things, a lot of people just think it's stim play or a TENS unit or even maybe a vibrator. But there are violet wands that are carrying currents. There are other devices that carry currents, and we have to be well aware, if we've never used these things, how to use them safely. Now, electroplay encompasses a spectrum of activities ranging from the very delicate, tingling sensations to profound and electrifying experiences, and it's in a unique exploration of this intersection between the physicality and psychology that the boundaries of human sensation kind of meet. So what's the allure for many of us? Inside of our community, electroplay exerts a true magnetic pull, and it's rooted in the complex interplay of pleasure and sensation, control and submission. It transcends the realm of the mere physicality, delving into the psychological and emotional territories of those who get involved. The allure of electroplay reaches far beyond physical sensations. It becomes this domain where psychological dynamics come to the forefront. The dominant partner wields mastery over electrical currents, adeptly guiding their submissive counterpart through this profound journey, where trust and surrender and pleasure all kind of intersect with each other. This dynamic fosters a unique brand of intimacy built upon clear communication and consensual exploration of our personal boundaries. For some, the unpredictability of electrical sensations adds an extra layer, if you will, of excitement. It's akin to kind of riding the wave of sensations, never quite certain when the next surge of pleasure will manifest. The element of surprise here and anticipation can be profoundly stimulating, making electroplay a favorite practice again among BDSM enthusiasts and seasoned veterans alike. A comprehensive study featured in the Journal of Medicine, Sexual Medicine, underscores the psychological aspects of electroplay as an integral part of the physical part of what we do. Participants reported in this one study highlighted emotional connection and trust, emphasizing that electroplay transcends the mere stimulation to become a sophisticated dance of power dynamics and intimacy. However, it's paramount that we do stress and understand that safety does take precedence. And I'm mentioning this a lot because as I go into safety and the risks and things, we need to understand that we're playing with something that has the capability of causing severe harm. And it's not something I'm going to be kind of restating it throughout the podcast today. So as we look at this, I know it's going to be a redundant thing that I'm saying. I'm going to try to cover a little bit in the subsequent, sections here, the critical aspects of safety and the fundamentals of electricity, so we can understand those things and even dispel some common misconceptions. So with safety first, we know that safety is the bedrock for everything we do inside of BDSM. We have to consider the risks. And the world of electroplay is no exception. Before immersing ourselves in the intricate world of electro-stim, we must acquaint ourselves with the potential risk and prioritize the safety and comfort and the consent of everybody that's involved. And that even goes for the person that's wielding the toy or the device that they're using. Now, electroplay offers a unique blend of pleasure, trust, and surrender, which necessitates a fine-tuned balance of control and consent. It's crucial that we recognize this path to safety is also riddled with potential risks to ensure that electroplay remains fun but a secure experience. And we must navigate these critical aspects of safety wholeheartedly. We have to understand the fundamentals of electricity and dispel these common misconceptions, because when they come up, we tend to have wrong information. The key risks associated with electroplay include skin and tissue damage, interference with medical devices, and the psychological factors such as anxiety or panic responses. So what are the common risks and dangers that are associated? Well, we're going to start with some of the bigger points and kind of work our way down. So, electrical burns. Now, when not used correctly, electrical toys and devices can cause burns. The skin, you have to remember, is quite sensitive, and even a mild electrical burn can be painful and leave long-lasting marks, and in some cases can leave scars. If you misuse your equipment, using electrical devices that aren't designed for erotic play can be dangerous. I've seen people using power tools and not fully understanding what they're doing. And if a shock happens in the wrong place, it's going to be extremely painful. So it's quite important to invest in equipment that's specifically created for this type of scenes, so we are ensuring both safety and our satisfaction. Another one is allergic reactions. Some people might have allergies to certain materials used in electro-play equipment, like latex, for example, or certain metals. And it's vital to be aware of the allergies and select the equipment appropriately. Well, something that we should consider, cardiac issues. For individuals with heart conditions or pacemakers, electroplay can pose a significant risk. Electrical stimulation here may interfere with cardiac devices or exacerbate heart-related health issues. So you should, if you are in our world and you're considering this type of play, you may want to consult with a healthcare professional if you have any other concerns, and definitely say something to your partner. Another big one to cover, inadequate training, lack of knowledge of how to use these devices that can potentially lead to an accident. So you need to become educated and learn about these different toys that you have at your disposal. Receive the proper training from someone who's an experienced practitioner or educator if they're available, and if not, then you need to make sure that you're going out and looking for one. Infection of risk. Electroplay can involve direct skin contact with equipment, so you have to make sure your equipment is thoroughly clean and sanitized before you use it. And that goes for all of our toys that we use or anything that we are using in the lifestyle. That's why we commonly, dungeons get cleaned quite thoroughly after sessions or in between parties, top to bottom. You'll come in and it smells like a hospital because it's been bleached and cleaned and sanitized. And it's important to have. Next, consent, of course, and communication. We have to understand that we're pushing a boundary here, but it should always be consensual. And any miscommunication or misunderstandings can obviously lead to any emotional or psychological or physical distress. And finally, a pain threshold. Now, electricity can vary from mild tingling to intense shocks. Understanding your partner's threshold and respecting their limits is crucial. Now, by being informed and communicating openly, we adhere to these safety guidelines. And these are just a few. There's dozens upon dozens more. You can significantly reduce the risks associated with electroplay. Now, again, you need to remember consent and communication and safety should always be the forefront of all of the things that we're doing inside of the lifestyle. So I want to understand, because there's sometimes quite a bit of miscommunication of understanding what watts and amps and volts are. So we need to it's really essential here to have a clear understanding of the basic principles of electricity and to have a solid grasp of what watts and amps and volts are is vital to ensure that safety and the enjoyment of all the participants that are involved. And here I want to kind of cover these concepts and shed light on their significance in the context. So what are watts and amps and volts and how are they defined? And before I get into the intricacies of more safety issues, I want to be clear on the understanding of the terms that are here in question. So a watt represents the unit of power in an electrical circuit. In simple terms, watts measure how much electrical energy is being consumed or generated. So this unit is critical for assessing the potential risks in electroplay, as it helps determine the intensity of the electrical stimulation. An amp, or short for amperes, quantifies the flow of electrical current. Amps tell us how many electrons are moving through a circuit during a given time. In the context of electroplay, amps are directly related to the strength of the electrical stimulation. The higher the amperage, the stronger the sensation. And finally are volts. Volts represent the electrical force that drives the current flow. In essence, a volt measures the electrical pressure within the circuit. They are crucial they are a crucial factor in electro-play as they determine the push behind the electrical current. The higher the voltage, the more force the stimulation will have. Now, what's the relevance here of these three things? Wattage control allows wattage or watts play here a critical role in determining the power of the output of electrical devices used in electrical play. In simpler terms, so we can understand it easier, they dictate how intense the sensations will be. Being aware of the wattage allows the practitioners to fine-tune the experience and ensure it remains within safe and enjoyable limits. Now, amperage and sensation. Amps directly influence the strength of electrical stimulation. Practitioners need to be mindful of the amperage to prevent overstimulation, which can lead to discomfort or even harm. Managing amperage is an essential aspect here of ensuring an enjoyable experience. And I want to add that amps are what kill. So if you're using something that's got high amperage, the potentiality if the device is any way damaged is significantly raised if there is something faulty with your equipment. So if you can lower the amperage, anything below a half an amp relies, is in a much safer realm to be practicing in. Going above that has the literal ability to stop one's heart or cause a disruption, can affect neural pathways in our brain. Now, voltage and safety. Volts provide the force, as I mentioned, behind the electrical stimulation. The voltage level on electro-play equipment determines how deeply the electrical current penetrates the body. So this is another area practitioners must exercise caution, as higher voltage levels can increase the risk of injury. Now, by having a solid grasp of what watts and amps and volts are, and I encourage you, if you're going to get involved in this type of play, to really start getting a deeper understanding. I know none of us are chemists or doctors. Well, some of us aren't chemists or doctors, but some are. But if this isn't your field of practice, understanding electrical things, but you want to get involved in electrical play, you need to get a basic understanding of how watts and amps and voltage work. And this allows you to navigate the world of electroplay with a little bit more confidence and safety in mind. And these concepts serve as the foundation for controlling the intensity of electrical stimulation and tailoring the experience for individual preferences. But you have to remember that while understanding these concepts is vital, following safety guidelines and using appropriate equipment remain equally important. And as I go through these next couple of areas, I really want to get into some more differences between the electrical units and how they relate to the devices and equipment that are used inside of electrical play. So when we're talking about safety precautions, safety, as I've mentioned before, is always going to end up being paramount. That this journey inside of our world, especially in electrical play, is, we've consented, we've maybe talked about it, we've done a dry run with the power off so we understand things, we've checked all our equipment. It becomes crucial to familiarize with safety precautions and protocols we've set forth just in case something happens, because the more prepared you are, the more enjoyable the experience. Now, these not only protect against our physical well-being, but it allows us to contribute to our emotional and psychological safety as well. So, what are some of the safety precautions, as I mentioned above? And they're not just about the risks, education and training, right? You need to go out and start to understand the equipment, read the devices that you're going to be using, understand where you can and cannot be using them. Consent and communication, always paramount. And I mentioned this just a little bit before. Start slow. Maybe understand the sensation on yourself first before you're doing it on somebody else, or before you're going to have it done to yourself. Understand what it feels like on maybe the tips of your fingers, your hands, or your thighs. Don't go near anything vital in the beginning. And this goes back to then, of course, knowing your equipment and understanding how it works, what it was intended for. Maybe when you're got something and you didn't know you had an allergy, because that's how we discover we are allergic to something, is by coming into contact with it. So understanding if you have an allergy or a skin condition, hygiene and cleanliness, which I covered, safe words and signals in case, if you have somebody bound and potentially gagged, or you're going to be bound and gagged, that you've worked on some safety signals. You want to avoid areas of any vulnerability. So you don't want to just charge right in and start zapping somebody when you don't know if you should. So being familiar with somebody's anatomy or anatomy in general is going to be quite important. Monitoring for overstimulation, and a lot of people, when they're using like Hitachi wands or anything like this, are, great, they're driving to someone to intense orgasms, but if you vary the intensity, it's essential to that if you're getting to the point you're overstimulating someone, you may start to create discomfort. And these signs can include muscle spasms, involuntary movements, or even a distressed emotional state. And if any of these occur, you have to completely stop, work your wind down, and work your safety protocols, and then take somebody into aftercare and make sure that they are safe. Emergency preparedness, I've covered this a little bit, but it's paramount. Safety measures in place. Have some safety shears handy nearby if you have restraints, or to remove any attachments. Make sure if you hooked to anything that's requiring power, you know where the master power switch is. Any of these things. If you're using a device, you don't want to necessarily just yank it off somebody, because that can cause a lot of harm too. Following manufactured guidelines. Adhere to what they're saying for your equipment. Use the devices as intended. Now, again, these are just some safety precautions here that are designed to enhance in the overall security of our experience. Prioritizing these things allows us to enjoy our experience more. And I know what maybe some of you are thinking, well, why are we, just focusing on the physical? And I've heard you, Chris, talk about the mental and emotional aspects. And I'm going to get to that because there are some consequences here. Now, while I realize there is a big part of our community that is involved in electric play, it does carry a lot of inherent risk. It's an elevated form of play with more risks than if you are just, say, paddling someone. There is a psychological impact of electrical injuries. There is significant scientific, several scientific articles here I'm going to discuss that shed light on this critical facet, and they offer insights into lasting effects of such experiences on the psyche itself. So first, the psychiatric consequences. There was a study such as psychiatric morbidity following electrical injury and its effects on cognitive functioning by Ramadi et al. In 2009, and they revealed that electrical injuries can lead to psychiatric difficulties. Now, why is this important? Are they more likely talking about work-related injuries or people that are in that field? Yes. But they did talk about in this study that people who have used some of this for intimate activities. And it's important to know, because when we say is, oh, well, that's not going to matter to me, that's never going to happen. But if it does, you need to understand what are the potential risks here if you're going to get involved. You don't dive into something without understanding the risks, because then you're not prepared and you are unsafe. You're going to make your partner unsafe. So the prevalence here of psychiatric disorders and electrical injury survivors can be substantial. With some reports ranging at 57% to 87% have had some effect after an injury. And the psychiatric manifestations here include major depressive disorder, anxiety, PTSD. And these psychiatric conditions may emerge after the traumatic event and can persist over a long period of time. Cognitive functioning here. Alongside psychiatric challenges, electrical injuries can have an effect on cognitive functioning. And cognitive domains such as memory, attention, executive functions may be impaired among survivors of electrical injuries. Studies here have shown significant correlation between self-reported measures of depression and cognitive outcomes, highlighting how increased psychiatric difficulties can be associated with poor cognitive performance. This suggests that addressing psychiatric well-being is essential not only for our mental health, but for good cognitive recovery. And if you already have any issues cognitively or mentally before you're getting into this type of play, you need to be aware that this can make some of the issues, or it can increase them, or by other means exacerbate them. And I don't, obviously, I don't want to just come at this with the doom and gloom, but we have to understand what we're doing, because I can tell you, if it's not weekly, if it's not daily, it's at least weekly, where I'm hearing about somebody got involved in some sort of form of play, water torture, breath play, electrical play, where they didn't really understand the risks involved and got hurt. And that's because they rushed to get inside. And instead of taking time to appreciate and understand their craft, they got hurt. So here, in this next part, I want to talk about recovery and intervention. Now, understanding the psychological impact of electrical injuries is crucial for our recovering and the well-being of survivors. In another article called Psychiatric Outcome Over a Decade After Electrical Injury, the impact of emotional symptoms of recovery is substantial. The study found here that patients with elevated depressive symptoms had difficulty across multiple domains of psychosocial adjustment and were less likely in some instances to return to work. This highlights the need for specialized psychiatric intervention immediately following an electrical injury. Now, careful attention here to evaluating these people's psychiatric status and initiating appropriate interventions is imperative. Now, with that said, it's vital to acknowledge and address the psychological ramifications of electrical injuries in the realm of our lifestyle, especially when it comes to electrical play. These encounters may potentially result in psychiatric conditions like I mentioned before, depression and anxiety and PTSD, but furthermore, they can impact our cognitive functioning. Now, emphasizing the significance of early intervention and treatment for survivors is paramount. I'm not saying that everybody here is going to get involved in electrical play is going to get hurt, but if you do, you need to understand all of these different things and that there is help on the outside if needed. Now, some of these studies I mentioned these studies highlighted and underscore the importance of vigilance and addressing the psychological well-being of those who have endured injuries, as well as understanding what you're doing once you're getting inside. As far as getting inside of this type of play and if something goes wrong. Now, as practitioners within our community, we are supposed to safeguard the safety and the mental health of everybody. That's supposed to be our concern. That's our concern as a dominant. That's what our submissive wants. And we have to have concern for ourselves. And by acknowledging these aspects, we contribute to a safer and more informed practice within the community. And I know I keep getting this rebuttal a lot. Well, I don't want to go to a class and be here for, 2 hours to learn. Well, you're just telling me you're a little bit unsafe, or you don't want to train. You just want to jump in and do. You don't even want to be, read the directions. If I'm picking up a toy and I don't know how to use it, and I'm just going to start wielding it on somebody, regardless if it's a bat with barbed wire or we're talking about edge play or anything, if we don't know how to do what we're doing, we are putting ourselves in a higher risk profile for some type of injury, physically, emotionally, or psychologically, especially when we're elevating our risk profile with a play such as electrical play, that we're putting our life in our hands and we're not caring. We have to be informed. There's a reason why people offer classes. There is a reason why people like myself talk about these things, because if injuries didn't happen, if things didn't go wrong, there'd be nothing for, everything would just be safe. But the lifestyle, we have learned the things that aren't necessarily safe for others to do, we tend to thrive on how can we use that for our benefit. Electrical play is no different. But we need to understand the risks that are involved. I'm not trying to say don't do it, but just understand that there are impacts here, there are potentialities, and so you're a little bit more well informed. So I hope I've kind of shed a little bit more light on the realm today to, exploring the intricacies here. Obviously, I've tried to underscore the paramount of importance. And safety isn't just a guideline, it's how all of our experiences are constructed. And, I hope you've taken away a little bit about, I know it was kind of quick when I talked about voltage and watts and amperage, but understand their potentialities and why they're important, especially in the devices we use or something frays and now you have a live wire and you're about to touch somebody's leg and you didn't realize it was a live wire and now you've just hit them with, a quarter of an amp and what that could do to them. So I do encourage you. There are some really good people out there that are involved in electrical play that put on some wonderful classes. I recommend them highly to go to. I mean, I don't know every person that does it around the world, but find somebody in your community that's had a couple of years. Maybe find someone who's involved in. I don't teach those types of classes anymore, but I have a really big background with coming from the military, working in electronics because we worked around electricity, so I understand it more. But take some time. If you doesn't matter what you're getting involved in, but if you're really going to get involved in electrical play, take the time to become educated on what can happen. How the device works, maintenance, voltage, amperage, watts. What's your safety plan look like, and what does happen? What do you do if something goes wrong, and what's the follow-up going to look like, and then the long-term implications of that. Because the more you know and the more you understand about our lifestyle, it allows us to get involved in activities that are going to end up being a lot safer for us to do. It doesn't reduce all of the risk by what I'm talking about today, because there's far more to learn about, and I could talk about this subject for the next, I could make channels about electrical play itself, or talking about voltage and amperage and all of these things and safety. But you have to be willing to educate yourself so you're safe for yourself and safe for those who you are involved with. So I'm going to post the question of, and then you can something to think about, if you've ever been interested in of electroplay, what about it intrigues you the most? And take some time to think about it. If you're following me on Spotify, or if you've just first time you've discovered me, please like and subscribe. Hit that 5 stars so other people can find me, and it can keep my name going out there, and I can keep this as what it is. That all that stuff to like and subscribe, yada yada yada. I do have a book out. Tangled Desires, the intersection of BDSM and psychology. Currently, wherever you get a ebook, it's available. I am working on my new revision finally to get it out into hardcover. Until next time, everybody, be safe and stay tuned.